So this is, just to be clear, Woody, procedurally, the 7 o'clock special meeting was postponed indefinitely currently, and will be brought up at a later date. We are now on to the regular scheduled meeting at 7:30 of the Darien Zoning Board of Appeals. We're going to have a few changes in players just because of some conflicts of interest. So bear with us as we sort through that. Again, I ask that you mute your mic if you're not speaking on an application. Everyone will get a chance to speak, and we'll try and make as much time as we can for everyone. We do have a pretty full agenda tonight, so we'd ask you to keep your presentations brief. We have reviewed the material. Most of us have visited the sites, and so we are familiar with your applications. With that, we'll start with calendar number 18/2021, which is postponed. Woody, is that technically a postponement when they didn't have the proper notice, or is that just not on the agenda?
Well, we had it on the agenda, and then we found out they weren't able to do the mailing. So technically, it's a postponement. They'll have to reset for April and do the mailings at that time. So it's essentially a start over with the timing. That's all.
Okay. All right. And then we'll move on to a continuation of public hearing, calendar number 19/2021. Barb Hazelton will not be sitting on this hearing as she has a conflict. So the sitting board members will be myself, Gary, Jeff, Matt, and Kevin. Did I miss anyone, Woody? I think that's right. So with that, we'll open it up to, I see Amy's here, so we'll open it up to Ms. Sabatakis, and you can begin your presentation.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. Amy Zabatakis, Rucci Law Group. As was noted, this is a continuation of the public hearing regarding 11 Renshaw Road, which is owned by John and Abigail Moore, who are on the call here today. Also on the call is Amber Penberthy, who's a builder, and Brad Yonkers, who's the architect. Is it okay if I take over the screen so I can show the surveys? All right, great. So what I have on the screen here are what we presented to you last time on this side. I'm not going to try to do right and left. I'm not sure how everybody's looking at it. And the what we're proposing in our most recent revision, which is over here. Basically, we really tried to take the board's recommendations from the last hearing to heart, and a number of changes were made. I think the biggest change is we were able to reduce the coverage variance request. Originally, the existing coverage is 24.7%. The original ask really only brought us down till 24.5%. We're now down to 22.4%. So still over coverage, but it's a substantial reduction in the nonconformity. We were able to do that by, you'll see that there's a section of the house that is in the setback area in the original plan, and this is actually in the existing house on the setback area on the east side of the house. And that area was on a different foundation than the balance of the structure that the Moores really wanted to retain. So they were able to very easily remove that, or well, we haven't done it yet, obviously, but the proposal is to remove that section of the structure. And the other way that we were able to reduce coverage is that we have reduced the size of the landing outside of the garage. There is livable space, that permitted livable space on the second floor of this garage, and there is required under the building code to be an access directly to the outdoors. So you'll see it's really just a landing and stairs on the current proposal. The other big change that we made is to the extent that we are keeping the rear portion of the house, which was the subject of a prior variance. That was the, when was that, 1956 variance that was previously issued to this property. We are keeping now the section of that wing that is currently a single story. We're going to keep that a single story. So there will be 2 stories over basically this, if you can see my cursor, the back of the house that is in the buildable area, but outside of the setback, that area will be a single story. The main portion of the house, which we are retaining and keeping, is currently two stories, and that will remain 2 stories. So basically this really reduces, like I said, the coverage variance. It also reduces the setback variances. Our setback variance on the westerly side is the same, but we are not increasing the volume on the second by adding a second floor. Our setback variance on the easterly side has gone down considerably because now the house itself is fully out of the setback area. The only thing that's in the setbacks are the 2 air conditioning condensers. The garage building, we're not touching. Again, with the entire property, we are adding eaves, which is a slight change from what we have currently, but as discussed, that's really better design for the house to prevent ice dams and overflows. So let's see. Oh, one thing that a question did come up on was sort of the screening on the side where the house is closer to the neighbors. Mrs. Moore has spoken numerous times with the Farrells, who are the next door neighbors. They're very happy with the proposed plan. There will be a 6-foot high fence in the back of the property, so behind where the house is, as well as the back lot line that will then meet up with the existing fence for the neighbors on the easterly side, along with number of plantings, boxwoods, arborvitae, etc. And there's been a great deal of consultation with the neighbors, and they're very pleased to see the proposal and what's being done here. As far as I know there was a question raised about the air conditioning condensers. So the air conditioning condensers, unfortunately, cannot go in the rear of the house within the setbacks because of issues with, we've got these, we're marrying some new construction, some old construction, and it would void the warranty to have the lines traveling that far. We did not consider putting the air conditioning condensers in front of the house. We don't think that's in keeping with the neighborhood. So that is why they're still in the setback area on the rear. But as we said, they're much further away from the neighbors than even the existing house is. So we think that's still an improvement. So basically we're looking for a variance of 406 to allow construction of a second floor addition, to allow let's say renovations to the house. The house is currently 3.9 feet on this one side, 8.5 on the other, and well over coverage. So we'll be at, the variance we're requesting is 3.3 feet in lieu of 10 feet on the west side. We're looking, and that's only increasing because of the addition of the eaves. 13.2 feet on the easterly side because that's to the distance to the air conditioning condensers. And then it's 5 feet, which is retaining what's on the garage structure back here. And again, a 22.4% in lieu of 20% coverage. As was discussed at the last hearing, we do feel that there is a legal hardship on this lot due to the house that was built prior to the zoning regulations changing. As I stated before, a hardship was found and a variance was issued in 1956 on those basis. And we are actually reducing the nonconformity, which I think is an improvement on this lot. So that's, we can go through the floor plans if that would be of help to anyone, but I thought maybe at this point I would open it up to questions.
All right, so Amy, is the fence that's being proposed conforming?
Yes, it will be. It's 6 feet tall, which is the max allowed once you get past the front lot line, and it won't be anywhere near the front yard. It's going to be in this backyard area. Okay.
And is it fair to say that the construction work you're planning is all within the setbacks, or is there some that's over the setbacks? I couldn't tell where your cursor is, if that shaded area is getting a second story or not.
It is not. That was one of the concessions we made. I know that the board was concerned about adding volume within the setback. So this area here, if you can see where my cursor is now, will be 1 story. Now, I can't say that there won't be some work in that area, because one of the things that we've also done in that area is there's currently a window on that wall, and that window is being removed. So there will need to be some work done on that exterior wall. But the framing and all of that, we will be retaining.
Okay.
But as a general matter, the only thing new in the setbacks are the eaves.
The only things new in the setbacks, well, yeah, so the eaves, correct. On the westerly setback, the only thing new in the setback is the eaves. On the easterly side, we're removing building that's in the setback, but we are adding the air conditioning condensers.
Right, but it's reducing the nonconformity. It's bringing,
Correct.
it's putting those in there. Okay.
Correct.
And Amy, if we were to not find a hardship because similar houses in this neighborhood are similarly situated, would your position be that the reduction in nonconformity then gives us the ability, excuse me, to grant these variances without a hardship being found?
I mean, I think, yeah, so the short answer to your question is yes. I do think there is a hardship because of, like I said, the regulations changing after the house was initially built, and that was found previously. But yes, there is, in addition, we now have the reduction in nonconformity, which I think is an independent basis for approval.
Okay. Jeff, any questions?
No, I'm good, actually. It's greatly improved. Thank you.
Gary?
No, I think I'm good too. Thank you.
Okay. And Matt?
I'm all set. That was pretty clear. Thank you.
Okay. Kevin, anything further?
No, I'm good. Thanks, Mike.
Okay. I think we're all understand the application as a board. I guess, Amy, if you have nothing further, I'll open it up to public comment.
That's fine. Shall I stop sharing my screen? Would that be easier so you can see everyone?
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to be heard on this application? Okay. Sorry, Woody, I skipped over you again.
Yeah.
Woody, would you like to add anything?
Well, we have this classic circumstance with how much of this rear wing can be preserved. I understand there's some weakness in the foundation that has to be at least underpinned and strengthened. I gather there's some reframing of the walls. I guess it would be good if we can to pin that down. Will the perimeter walls of that back wing stay? Will the floor deck stay? How about the ceiling joists and the rafters? Which of those things are basically going to stay?
I can go through that a bit if you'd like.
Sure.
Okay. So basically, the whole floor system in that back area will be retained. That's the slab, floor joist, plywood subflooring. There will likely need to be some underpinning or load point piers. There's a structural engineer that's part of this team that will be working with us. Once, some of this, as always, you don't know exactly what you've got until you're able to start opening up walls and taking things down. So we know enough to know that we can retain what we can retain, and that we will likely need, a certain amount of underpinning. The 2x4 wall framing will be retained, as I said, but there will be some changes made to the walls because of the windows that are being removed. So we're not planning on any removal of walls, but there will be some, some changes to the walls. Similarly, in that the rear wall in the back, to the extent we're in the setback area, the intention is, well, I shouldn't say to the extent we're in the setback area, that whole area, the framing will remain, but there will be, again, adjustments for where doors and windows are located. And the plan is to really retain the whole wall, but again, as we get into it, if there need to be some repairs made, they will be. We would like to be able to remove the roof rafters over that 1-story area that's remaining in the setback, because it would be easier to then connect it into the new flooring on the where we're going to have now 2 stories. If it's important to the board that roof area be maintained, we can. There are ways to do that. It just would be a little cleaner if we could remove that roof area.
Yeah, so the issue we run into, Amy, and I know you're probably well aware of this, but the issue we run into is, if you're going to knock down the majority of the structure, then why are we retaining that structure in a setback area? If it's a viable structure and you're adding on to it, it's a much easier variance for us to grant. And so, Woody, hearing that, I'm going to guess you're probably not particularly comfortable with where we are on retainage and deletion. Maybe we add some stipulations, engineer's report to be provided prior to issuance of a building permit, and if they need to do some exploratory demolition to figure out what they can keep and what they can't, with the caveat that if you are going to remove a substantial portion of what's in the setback area, that's a different application.
Well, I think, and the plan definitely is not to remove a substantial part. And maybe I was not as clear as I should be. And Amber and Brad are both on and can jump in as needed. But we are retaining the walls. We're retaining the flooring. It's more in the nature of repairs and actually adding more wall, if I can say it that way, because we're closing in those windows. What I am asking about is actually that we could go either way on is the roof structure on that 1-story section. Obviously, the roof structure that's in the buildable area is going to be removed because we're putting a 2nd story on there. But outside of the buildable area, we can keep the roof structure that we have if that's what the board would like to see done. But it would be cleaner if we remove that. So that's a question I'm posing to the board. But for sure, we're definitely keeping all of the framing. We're underpinning the foundation. We're keeping all of the flooring. It's just more a question of some changes to the walls that need to be made for windows and doors.
Okay. I have no issue with, as long as you're maintaining the same volume. If you're going to be removing it to bring it up to code and make it a more sort of unified structure, I don't have any issue with that. I don't know, how the rest of my board feels, but Woody, do you think you've got enough there to draft a stipulation?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Anything further from the board? Anything further from the public? Amy, anything further from you?
No, I think we're all set. Thank you. I appreciate the board's time.
Thanks a lot, and thank you for your patience with us. We'll go ahead and close 19-2021. Next on the agenda is calendar number 1, 2022, the application of Tara O'Connell for 106 Old Kings Highway South. If you're here on that application, please step forward. Now, Woody, just to be clear, who's stepping down? Is Barb going to stay off on this one? You're muted.
That's kind of up to you who you want to appoint, whether it's maybe Matt or Barb.
Well, seeing that Barb, you're good for the rest of this meeting, right?
Yeah.
And Matt's conflicted on Woodway. Why don't we let Matt sign off for the night and thank him for his help? I mean, you're more than welcome, Matt, to stay on if you'd like, but we'll switch over and have Barb part of the panel. And at any point, if you feel like dropping off, we can manage the rest of the night.
We'd want to keep Matt on board anyway for deliberation of, Rancho.
Oh, geez. Yeah, for sure. Sorry about that, Matt. Yeah, you're stuck with us.
No problem. Thanks, Ed.
Okay, so we're going to move on to calendar number 1, 2022, Tara O'Connell. That's going to be myself, Jeff Williams, Barb Hazelton, Gary Green, and Kevin Fullington as the board.
I
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I do have Glenn Rodrigo, who's the builder for our deck, on with me tonight. And I just want to apologize. My father passed away at noon suddenly today, and we're on a family vacation. So my mental state is not quite what it should be, but we've done a lot of work to get to this point, and I did not want to lose out on this opportunity to speak with y'all this evening. So we're here, and we're going to present you with whatever information you need to make a decision. So thank you for your time. Let's see if I can advance the next slide. All right, so as I'm sure you saw in the proposal, we are here to request a 1.47% coverage variance on our lot 106 Old Kings Highway South. It's covering part of my screen, but it says from 20% to 21.47. We did have a survey done at the very end of 2021, and with the current deck, which was permitted, and I have that information at the end of the presentation, the current coverage is actually 20.4%. So the property we moved into about 2.5 years ago was over coverage. So we are looking to extend it 1% over the existing. And so I have some photos on the next slide, but the existing conditions of our property, the backyard is a pretty steep slope and is not an outdoor space that is conducive to use for us and our family. So we would like to extend the small deck that we have right now by 6 feet to just allow for more outdoor usable space, so a dining table, chairs, a barbecue. And I have the dimensions there, but it's about 260 square feet, so nothing, you know, I think the average deck size is 300 to 400 square feet, just some livable outdoor space. So we're just proposing to, and I'm sorry, I'm a bit all over the place tonight. We're proposing to extend it back just an additional 6 feet. And what you'll see in the slides that follow is there's no, the setback in the rear is still within the limits, as well as the setback on the side. And so survey should show that. I've been in to see Woody quite a bit over the last maybe 6 months or so. And we did, you know, explore if there were other ways to reduce coverage. At this point, I think there's the deck and there's the house. So I don't think beyond the deck and the house, there's much else we can do. And the slope of the property does not allow for a patio to be built without a retaining wall being built and the property being risen up. Can't really even mow the lawn back there. So the slope is fairly severe. So I know we are limited on time, so let me give you, so I just took a few photos just to give you a visual of the back of our property. And so right behind us, before we purchased the home, there was a business built fairly close to the back of our house. It's a bridal shop there right off of exit 11. So they did put that fencing on the right-hand side and some trees up there, but they're pretty much looking in our windows. But that's the back of the house. You can kind of see the existing wall that was there when we moved in, and there's not much space there to do much with as part of the backyard. And please feel free to interrupt me with questions. I'll keep moving. So I think everybody has received a copy of this, but I just wanted to show you the survey that was done with the proposed deck addition to show that the setback in the rear and on the side are still within the limits for our property. So the side setback was 10, and with the extension at the closest point, it'll be 10.7. And the rear, I think we had, can't read it here, but I know we had plenty of space behind. So it was really just the coverage variance that we were requesting. And so this is just a copy of what you guys have already seen, which is the current coverage 20.4 and the requested variance of 1.47 over the allowed 20% limit. Proposed deck plans, I know I've included this in the package as well, and we do have Glenn on who can answer any questions about this, but I've, for some reason, my screen is covering the piece I need to see for the numbers. I don't have my two screens at home like I would, but I believe I have the existing dimensions here and square footage. And then in the red outline there, you'll see the extension of the deck. And then the material that you saw, it's built in wood right now. It's pretty ugly, and you can see it right off exit 11. The material we're building it with, hopefully with Glenn, is a nice gray and white Trex material, which will be much more visually appealing from the highway exit as well as from the businesses behind us. I have more photos or more of the deck plans that I included in the next few slides. So please let me know if you want me to flip to anything in particular and stop and answer questions. But this is the bird's eye view of the existing deck where it lines up against the house on the top side and on the right-hand side, and the deck extension. And then
I think we have a pretty good idea of the project.
okay.
Let me start by saying, obviously, our condolences.
Thank you.
I lost my father 2 years ago now, and it's not a pleasant experience, but it's something we all go through as part of life, and so
Thank you.
with that being said, coverage variances are some of the hardest variances to get granted. And I hope Woody prepared you for that, because, bulk and area requirements are, we look very closely at setbacks, but there's usually some rationale as to why the setbacks have changed or things like that. Coverage is sort of sacrosanct in that everybody gets to use 20% of their property unless there's some overwhelming reason to change that. I think what you're expressing here is that your hardship is the nature and character of your lot, the large sloping lot, in that without this variance, you're deprived the use of your sort of backyard area, which is otherwise unusable without this deck. And I'm just trying to sort of craft that in terms
Yes,
that
thank you. That's correct.
some of the board members are a little bit more familiar with. So I understand the application. I think I've seen what I need to see on it. There might be a couple of questions I might ask, but let me open it up. Let's start with Jeff.
Thanks, Mike. I do have a question, because unfortunately I have to echo your comments. Well, I echo all your comments relative to the board's condolences, and
Thank you.
and we feel for you. I lost my mother at Christmas time this year, so I'm there as well. Unfortunately, we all go through it. Even we wish you the best of luck, of course. With that said, may I ask, because it's an interesting situation to me, may I ask, what is, I'm looking at the pictures, what's underneath? Is the surface underneath that deck? The picture is going this way, so I can't see what that surface is underneath the deck. Is it
gravel?
It's gravel. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they filled it in with gravel.
Yeah. Okay. And then and then I would suspect it's cement underneath the actual house itself. Is that correct?
No, all the way across is gravel.
Okay. No issue. The reason I asked the question is, unfortunately, I have to echo the chair's comments relative to the coverage variances. They're very, very difficult, given the reasons that he stated. So, I can only say this. I recently rented a house in Stratton, and they had the exact same issue with expanding their deck, and they couldn't fit the grill. They had the chairs and the patios on the deck, but the grill and the associated accessories didn't, and it was underneath the deck. So we had to go. We didn't even have stairs that access that area. You can't see where I'm pointing because I don't have my cursor on, but we didn't even have stairs to access it. And unfortunately, that may be your best recourse. I'm not all too sure what you're doing for barbecuing, but we all like to barbecue, and I understand your position. But and again, I echo the chair, and I hope that Woody prepared you for the difficulty with regard to the board passing an increase in coverage volume.
Yep, he said it was.
I might have that surface, I don't know, made out of wood, or lay some concrete down or something. But in any event, I'll defer to the rest of the board with questions and comments. Thank you very much, Chair.
Barb?
Hi, Tara. You mentioned regrading the property, and I've owned homes before where we've done that and brought in topsoil. What did you explore in regards to a retaining wall?
We did not explore anything. We were told that the previous owners came to the town and were denied.
That's the only thing I can think that you would do here outside of expanding. I mean, I do like that you're staying within the setbacks, but it is this ongoing precedent. Typically, when somebody comes to the board and their property is already over the setback, we make them remove the encumbrance. So you're at risk of having us remove your original deck, which I don't think they're going to do. But that's kind of the precedent in the background, which I think they're trying to outline for you. But I do think the property is difficult, and I'm so sorry about what you're going through right now.
Can I interject for one moment? My name is Glenn Rodriguez, and my name is Glenn Rodriguez, and I am the owner of All Decked Out. And so I am the one who drew that there. I think that has anybody been able to go out and visit that site at all to see what we're talking about? If
Yes.
not, to walk underneath that existing deck is the height is just not really there. The grade is so steep that you wouldn't be able to pour concrete without building an enormous retaining wall back there. So that's why we are asking we're looking for 100 square feet.
Yeah, I understand your comments, sir. I was sort of thinking out loud and trying to come up with some sort of resolve. Right. She's trying to do. So I understand the comment. I appreciate it. I am not a builder, so I do understand what you're expressing. Thank you.
Yep. And we definitely looked at all those because we also, part of our company, we do build patios, and we exhausted every possible way that we could think of so we wouldn't go over the coverage. This is a unique situation because the backyard is so steep. There's really no other way of trying to have some type of outdoor living space without, again, just coming out 6 more feet.
Okay. Gary, any comments?
Yeah, I just want to get on the record that you've looked around. I assume you've looked around the house and thought about any areas of reduction of coverage that might mitigate your request or reduce the scope of your request.
We did with that. Yeah, with that one side on that side of the house is really truly the only place that you can have that deck. That's the only doorway that can exit the home. Yeah, but on the opposite side.
Right. So no. My question isn't where else the deck can be located, but rather it's just for the completeness of the record.
We did. I came.
That there are no other aspects of the home that could be, or aspects of coverage that could be reduced.
I don't think
I spoke to Woody about it a bunch too because I joined the hearing in January.
I'm sorry, you guys talked over each other there a little bit.
Yeah, there's not. Oh, I think we're both answering the same thing. We did explore it. I came and I spoke to Woody a bit about it because I know that question came up. I listened in on the January hearing and just made sure with him that we explored every option. There's the house and there's the deck. There's not much else going on with the property. It's pretty tiny, and the entire backspace is what you see here. It's just a slope and a drop. And I know there's, quite a bit of exception made for the property that's built right directly behind us. So I don't know that that counts as a hardship per se, but I did want to bring that up as well. And if it's not 6 feet, even 4 feet would be helpful, just so we could fit a table and chairs and our kids outside for dinner. Just to use some of the outdoor space would be totally fine. Doesn't have to be 6 feet. But right now it is very tiny structure at the moment.
Woody, how do the stairs count as coverage?
Well, they do in this case because they're wood and they look like building structure, as opposed to masonry steps, which we would consider part of the landscape. Well, it would be one way to maybe cut this down if, say, half of the stairs up to 4 feet above the ground was made of masonry.
That's what I was wondering.
So there's a little bit of balance there.
Right, that's what I was trying to figure out, whether there's a little give there. Okay.
Now, I just heard Ms. O'Connell say, I believe she said that, if 6 feet isn't acceptable, maybe 4 feet would be. So maybe there's some give there. The other thing I just want to mention is I heard that there was a claim that, what was that, a prior owner sought to regrade the property and was denied. Is that correct?
That's what we were told.
Okay. If that's, true, we'd have to do some research and see. I could see where perhaps there'd be a justification if regrading the land to flatten out part of it to make a more usable patio was denied somehow. Maybe that would put us in a better, position. But we'd have to do some research to see that, and that would basically mean continuing the hearing to April.
I personally think, given the coverage problems, that considering the discussion about the stairs and further investigating the viability of a patio, which obviously doesn't impact coverage. I know there's the slope and the distance from your living area. But that might give you the outdoor livable space if we can come up with a way for you to flatten that area and make a patio. Again, as long as it's less than 6 inches off the ground, it doesn't count as coverage, or do some terracing. I would recommend, I guess, and Mike, you tell me if I'm off base, evaluating that and maybe keeping the application open.
Yeah, Gary, I'm just looking at the spot elevations. It starts at 93 feet at the house, and to the wood retaining wall, it's 85 feet. And I mean, I don't have the dimensions, but that's not more than probably 10, 15 feet. I mean, yeah, you could probably engineer something in there, but it's going to be ridiculous. And I know that's not really a standard of review for the Zoning Board of Appeals, but as a practical matter, it's going to be a pretty crazy looking structure. And I don't think it's going to be less than 6 inches off the ground.
Yeah, okay. I'm not arguing with you.
It's going to be more like 6 feet off the ground.
Yeah, but if it's terraced, it doesn't count.
Right, that would be okay if it's masonry. It wouldn't count for coverage. Unless it's more than 4 feet above the ground, we'd have to look at that. That gets tricky with the way the commission has set up some standards there.
Yeah,
but we don't have a design to really think about yet.
Well, yeah, but Woody, it's an 8-foot drop.
Right.
So it's going to be more than 6 feet.
Now that's
slim bit of land.
Yeah, that's the wooden retaining wall. Maybe where the proposed deck would extend out 6 feet, maybe that grade change is just 3 or 4 feet.
No, it's 91 to 80.
Yeah, to Woody's point, it goes from 92.9 to 91.6. I don't have the dimension there, Mike, but you can see what I kind of do, because if you look at the proposed deck and the 6 feet, you can see that it doesn't really go that. It's 6,
4 feet
9.
down.
Yeah, it's 1.5 feet between the beginning of the proposed deck and the end of it. That's 6 feet. It looks like it's about 1.5 feet drop in that 6 foot area, according to the way my math works. But all right, I see.
Well, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
Kevin, we haven't heard from you yet.
Yeah, I guess if I don't know if we're planning on closing it or continuing, so I'll ask the question as though we're closing it. And Tara, again, as everybody said, I'm so sorry for your loss. Can't imagine what so. But in terms of just completeness of the record, also, one of the things that we have to find if we're going to grant a variance is that there's something unique or unusual about your property that is not common to the other properties in the area. So just for the purpose of the record, I can't really tell exactly your neighboring properties. Some of them look like they are level, but is the slope in your property unusual as compared to the other properties in the neighborhood?
It is. Yeah, I think where we're situated is the most severe compared to the ones next to us. So the house that you can see in the background, that light blue one, he's got a fairly level backyard that he, goes out and mows no problem. And on the other side, it's fairly level as well.
Okay, that's all I wanted.
Chairman, one of the things we could do is we could get the contour topographic maps that we have of the area that Kevin maybe suggests to several properties nearby, and see just what these contour circumstances are. And maybe this is significantly steeper than others, but we could verify that with a little bit of research.
Yeah, I think you will find that it is.
So I guess that leaves it to, well, let me ask one last question. Is anyone in the public that wishes to be heard on this application? Okay. So I guess that leaves it to the applicant. If you want to continue this hearing to explore, an on-grade patio in that area.
I think we would prefer not to.
Well, I question the accessibility to that patio as well. The contour of the land doesn't really allow you to get to that area. There's no accessible access from the home to that area. There would be excessive amount of work to be done to be able to come down the side property. It'd be really not useful at all.
Yeah, I also think it's dangerous to our children to be that close to like the drop and I think the deck, at least from as a mother, just adds a level of safety for me with some railings and a gate that we plan to build on it versus a patio that has then, children being able to access the rest of this pretty dangerous landscape. So I don't think we'd want to explore the patio for safety reasons.
The other issue with it is that you'll have 6 to 8 6x6 posts that are coming down, which would really, really take up quite a bit of that space because of the existing, and you don't stand underneath that deck easily. It's not that high.
You can kind of see with the windows underneath, like it's window height. Those windows go from probably a foot above the ground right to the base. They're full-size windows in the basement, so that gives you a sense of just the height underneath the deck and underneath the overhang there. It's not like a good standing height. Say like an adult would maybe hit their head, like a 6 foot or so, maybe 6.5 foot high.
Also, with the 2x8 beam that's underneath the structural main beam, that's also lower.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and close the application and we will be deliberating at the end of the public hearings. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your consideration. Do we drop now?
Thank you.
You can, or you can hang on and wait until the deliberations. It's entirely up to you.
Yeah, I think with our situation, I'm gonna step out.
Absolutely understood, and good luck to you and your family.
Thank you. And we'll hear from Woody on the decision.
For sure, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
We are now on to calendar number 2, 2022, the application of Woodway Country Club. We have Jeff and Matt sitting out on that, so our board for this will be myself, Barb, Gary, and Kevin.
And I apologize. I was handed dinner during this, so I'll be on mute, but I'm eating chili. It's what
But
we
do
have
you
to
eat
do.
chili with rice is really the question.
Excuse
I'm
me?
good with it, Gary.
I can
If you're
turn
here
off
for
my
that
camera if
application,
you want, but I'll just mute unless I get instructions otherwise.
Woody, who's here for that application? Is it Brian McMahon?
Yes, there should be 2 or 3 people here. Go ahead.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Brian McMahon, licensed professional engineer with Redness and Mead, here tonight on behalf of Woodway Country Club. I am here with Jim Livingstone. He is with Rogers McCagg Architect, project architect for this application. If Steve McVeigh, the general manager of the club, is intending to join, but he's in the midst of a prior commitment at the moment, and he may join us soon. Am I a presenter? Can I share my screen?
Yes, you should be right down the bottom of the screen.
All right. Hang on a second. Okay. I'm having a little trouble doing so. I'm sorry. Let me see what we have here. Can you see the survey? Oh,
Yes, we can.
Yes, we
oh,
can.
you can. Okay, perfect. Perfect. So this is the property at 552 Hoyt Street. Hoyt Street being on the right side of the page here, and on the easterly limit, the Norotan River. It is adjacent to and abuts the Norotan River. The property is located, and the house for that matter, is located entirely within the 100-year floodplain of the Norotan River. The property was built in 1962. The house was built in 1962. And it is non-conforming with several aspects of the zoning regulation. First, it is non-conforming with area. It is 0.84 acres. It is non-conforming with respect to the floodplain regulations. The base flood elevation for the site is 109.0. The finished floor of the existing house is 108.9. It is also non-conforming both with the northerly yard setback and the southerly yard setback. And so what this proposal intends to do is to raise RAISE, the existing house, elevate the house by 2 feet, going from finished floor elevation of 108.9 to finished floor elevation of 110.9. I just point out that through some deferred maintenance and wear and tear and age of the house, it has gone into some disrepair, and that the Woodway Country Club has engaged the services of Rogers McCagg, who a year and a half or so, began studying different options for renovating the house. They looked at tearing it down and rebuilding it. They looked at renovating it in place. And as you may know, the floodplain regulations limit the amount of resources that can be put into the structure to 50% of the value of the structure. But they did go down that road quite a bit, intending to renovate it in place, and came to the conclusion that they could not stay below that 50% limit. And so they made the decision to propose to raise the house, elevate it up by 2 feet, and in doing so, bring it entirely into compliance with the floodplain regulation. That is to say that the finished floor will be a minimum of 2 feet, or excuse me, a minimum of 1 foot above the base flood elevation. The existing crawl space will get a topping slab that ensures that the slab is at least at or above grade on at least 1 full side of the house, which is required by your regulations. The crawl space, as well as the garage, will be equipped with flood vents per the regulations. Attendant utility facilities, meters, air conditioning units. It is served by home heating oil now. It will continue to be, but it will be elevated to be above the base flood in accordance with all regulations. I just simply point out that currently the easterly face of the house is enclosed livable space. At one point years ago, it was a garage, and part of this proposal here has that garage being restored for reuse as a garage. Let's see. So we are proposing to use the existing foundation. It is structurally sound. Jim Livingstone is here and can answer questions with respect to that. So we are building up the existing foundation to an elevation at least 1 foot above the base flood and setting the house back down. I'll point out that the floor elevation of what will once again be the garage will not change. That will be down to where it is now. It's the rest of the house that is being raised up. It is well below the 30-foot limitation, even after the raising of height limitation in this zone. Because it is in the floodplain, we are required to get EPC approval. I am pleased to report that we just came from there. Jim and I did that meeting just a short while ago, and the commission voted to direct staff to draft up a resolution of approval to be voted on at their next meeting. They were pleased with the application. And so what we are looking to do is really maintain the existing non-conforming setback to the north and the existing non-conforming setback to the south as is, unchanged. The house will be lifted, the foundation will be raised up, and the house will be set down. And of course, there is extensive renovations within the house itself. So what we feel we're doing is we have a few nonconformities. We are maintaining the 2 we're here tonight for, and we are eliminating the nonconformity with respect to the floodplain regulations. That's really, I think it's really as simple as that. The ask is as simple as that. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Yeah, I may quit when I would quit when I was ahead. So I think just stating the obvious, if you looked at the buildable area of this particular property, given its shape, it doesn't really allow you or anyone to construct a conforming home. Thank you. I was going to ask the question for the record. Thank you for pointing out that you're not seeking any height variance, and you're simply seeking to lift and replace the house in a better height for flood regulations. I don't, other than making a statement about the buildable area and confirming the height issue, I don't have any other questions about this application.
And I just want to confirm one additional thing, which I think is self-evident, but for the record, that in addition to not expanding any nonconformity in terms of the setback, you are not building any additional volume in the setback either, right?
Correct. That is correct. I will point out that I meant to indicate it originally. We are placing a small amount of fill on the north side of the house here. There is an egress door there now that comes out to grade, and it is simply to accommodate the added 2 feet in the elevation of the finished floor. So there'll be a small fill pad here with just a landing pad of bluestone or flagstone as an exit point to the building. It's not a structure. We're not building a deck. And actually, this was just brought up at the EPC Commission meeting a short while ago. We're obligated to demonstrate that we have offset that fill elsewhere on the site, so there's no net decrease in existing floodplain storage, and we have done so with that application.
Barb?
There's no coverage issue, right? You're well within the 20%?
Yes, we're well below.
I'm good.
And Woody, drainage and all that will be done through the permitting process?
Yes, and the Planning and Zoning Commission also has to review this because of the floodplain and flood damage prevention features. So there's actually a triple look at this with our boards and commissions. And yes, for construction, they'll have to have all kinds of grading, drainage, erosion controls. But there's not much soil disturbance here. It's primarily just a inserting of the steel and jacking up and masonry work of the foundation. That little bit of film that Mr. McMahon just mentioned, but I don't expect much site disturbance.
And I guess just the applicant ingress and egress, how's that going to be accomplished with the raise? Is there a new stairwell or?
You could see right here on the proposed landing and steps right here, and here.
So that's the extent of the additional stairs that are going to be needed for the raise.
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah, seems pretty straightforward. Is there anyone from the audience that wishes to be heard on this application? Okay. Seeing no one, if the applicant's okay, we'll go ahead and close this application.
Thank you.
Great.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving right along, calendar number 3, 2022. The application of Robert F. Maslin on behalf of C8 LLC. And for this, Woody, it's myself, Jeff, Barb, Gary, and Kevin, correct?
Can be up to you, or Matt can sit in for Barb on this one, but up to you.
Well, let's just try and keep it simple. Okay, Mr. Maslin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Robert Maslin, attorney for the applicant. And I see some folks on the go to meeting. Mitch Truitt is here. He's camera shy at the moment, but he is one of the principal of the applicant LLC. Kurt Lowenstein is here from Land Tech. And that's about it for tonight's hearing. If I could, Woody, if I could have the screen. Okay. And I knew I was going to have trouble with that, but let me just see.
I think I see it down the bottom there.
Yeah, that comes up weird on mine. Let's see what I got here. Oh, that's the wrong one, but let me just see if I can work that into a slideshow. PowerPoint. I'm getting there. Okay, let's do it this way. Swap. Oh, why is that not working? Oops. Well, all right. Yeah, not sure what's up, but at least you can see the slide here that we're talking about, and we'll go through it this way. The request here is to grant variances for building on a portion of the lot that's less than the minimum depth, and a couple of rear setback variances, which I will explain as we go along. And the benefits of this project are listed here on the slide, and they're also listed in more detail in our item K. We are doing some things that I think are what zoning is all about: reducing the non-conforming building coverage, reducing non-conforming developed site area substantially. We're creating a front yard that's going to have a lawn as a landscaped area, 10.2 feet, which is actually 2/10 more than the required 10 feet, and that's an increase from 0 because it's all pavement now. Increase the side yard along that right side so that it conforms. That's one of the areas where you have either a 0 setback or a 4-foot setback. 3.8 doesn't work, so we're going to 4.1. Remove an old dilapidated non-conforming shed that's sitting in the rear setback, and reduce the non-conformity from where the shed is at 7.2 to 15.6 feet. Close, but it's better than the non-conforming situation that exists now. And of course, eliminate the flood zone non-conformity. So if you haven't been down here, the property is right in the middle of this aerial photograph, and I will see if I can, yep, right here. 5 Mile River is off on the right side of the screen. 5 Mile River Road is this intersection here. There's a gas station, and there's a little kind of a, not quite sure what's in there now, a little store here with apartments above, and this looks like a little office building. Wooded area behind. Cliff Avenue's over to the left and Raymond Street's to the right. And there we go. That's a close-up aerial view. It kind of demonstrates where this setback issue here on the right is, and then the setback in the rear. The shed is back here. There's an HVAC unit back there as well. Some photographs. It only takes one to get a sense of what's there, but this is a side yard photograph. The boundary itself is not called out here, but you get a sense of what's there now. Not very well landscaped. You can get a glimpse of some ledge in the back. Part of that's on the site. Most of it's just off the site. This is the front. You can see that the entryway and the door sills are pretty much at grade. And my guess is this peeling paint here might be the result of some recent flooding or flooding over the years. This is supposed to be a landscaped area, but you can see it's crumbled up old asphalt. Look, this looks like a tree landed on it. That's the old shed. This garage is on the adjacent property. Office building next door. You can see here the existing curb cut is undefined. It runs this whole length down to the building and even across the front of the property, where people today can parallel park right alongside the front of the building up along in this area here. These are apartments up here, and there's a store down on the first level. That takes us through the photographs. Not sure if I can blow this up, but this is the existing conditions map, and you can see this doesn't really face the street in a way that's roughly parallel with the curved front line. The metal shed is depicted in the back here, and the HVAC units back here. And you can see the pavement runs off the property in the back. This whole area is paved. And except for the little grass in here that you saw, most of this back here, there's some lawn here, but from the shed over is all paved. Our proposal is to remove the existing structure and build a new 2-story building with approximately the same footprint or building area, remove the coverage that the shed is responsible for, and place a new HVAC unit behind the building. So this results in conforming setbacks in the front on each corner and obviously in the middle, conforming setback on the right side, and the rest of it I went through. The pavement gets trimmed down to this configuration. The rest of this will be either lawn or planted, including the area in the back. This is another view of the site plan. One of the benefits of this is that we're taking an untreated drainage situation where virtually the entire site, except for this area in the back, causes runoff to run down into the street, down the street into a catch basin that's right about here. And in its place, the project will include treatment under this rectangle with a connection into the state's drainage system in the street. DOT has given us the nod for that. Obviously, the technical aspects will have to be submitted to them, but this will actually reduce the runoff, and it will, what runoff ends up in the system will be treated by this treatment facility here. It's basically going to be underground infiltrators that once they're in action and they overflow, then you'll go into the state system. And the other is, I don't know how they did this, but there's no sewer connection, and there'll be a sewer connection. Another view, stockpile over here on the left, and that's it. This is the building. South elevation, this is the side that faces Tokenic Road. I'll show you this floor plan in a second, but this door goes into the garage, and the doorway over here on the right goes to stairs that go up to the apartment. The west elevation, which is from the left side, has a 2-car garage. The rear of the building is the lower left, the north elevation. And then the east elevation is facing the, or taken from the store that is on the Norwalk side, looking toward the building. Building height is 24 feet 4 inches, which is less than the maximum 25 feet. Our garage level will have space for 2 garages, 2 parking spaces. And if you were thinking about the width of this or depth of this building, depending on how you look at it, in order to have garage doors with a post in the middle and to be able to park inside the garage and have room to walk around, you really need this width. And this width is pretty much the same as the existing footprint width. A storage area over on the right here, and you can see the doorways. This is kind of a doorway here. Another one over here in the corner going up the stairs. And if you wanted to come in from the outside over here, you could do that as well, up the stairs. This double door here goes to an equipment room. All of the mechanicals will be up above the flood elevation as required. The apartment upstairs is basically a 1-bedroom with a living area and a kitchen and a bath, closet space. It'll be air conditioned. And that's basically it. The hardship I've explained in the item K, although under some recent case law, when you're improving a non-conforming flood situation, you do get flexibility without having to show a hardship. We also have the Hescott case here where we have several existing nonconformities and we are removing many and reducing what we can. And the hardship was based on the history of this. I talked about it in detail in the item K, but this lot was created in or before 1957. And sometime between 57 and 1970, that lot was enlarged to its present configuration. And the building was built in 1953, according to the assessor. In that era, this property was in the B residence zone where there was no minimum lot area, no minimum lot width, no minimum lot depth requirements. And the front yard requirements were shown in the regulations as, believe it or not, optional. Rear yard was 10% of the lot depth, which would have been 5 feet for this property. So obviously this building complied with the minimal regulations that were in effect when the building was built. Recent changes to the regs, and particularly creation of the NB zone and the regs that apply to it, create the hardship. I do have Woody's staff memo here, and I think there's one point here that I'd like to make, and I have to go back to the let's use this. One of the things Woody is suggesting is to take the new HVAC unit from behind the building where it is, we need a variance for that, and place it up adjacent to the right front corner of the building so that it looks like it's 4 feet away from the boundary. Technically, we can do that, but there are a couple of considerations. One is the HVAC unit has to be up on a platform. And the way the grades are here, the platform is about 4 feet. And when you add an HVAC unit on top of it, you're looking at a structure that, or a combination that's somewhere between maybe 5.5 feet in height. It's just not going to look good over in this corner from the street. In the back, it's hidden from the street. And as we saw in the aerial earlier, most of this area on the adjacent property is wooded, and it's really not going to result in an offensive view from behind the property. It's certainly not any more offensive than that old rundown shed. So that's the one comment that I wanted to pass along for your consideration. The other question that Woody had is about the unusual nature of the NB zone. Every use that's allowed in the NB zone is allowed by special permit, including single-family residences. And therefore, this application has to go to the Planning and Zoning Commission under the special use or special permit standards. It also has to go to the Planning and Zoning Commission because it's work in a flood zone, and we do have an application pending there. Obviously, we need the variance before we can proceed with that. But yes, it is an unusual situation. You wouldn't ordinarily think you need a special permit for a single-family home, but that's the way it is in the in the neighborhood business zone. I just wanted to point out one other thing. This arrangement will end up having a defined sidewalk, which doesn't exist now. It will connect with the sidewalk at the office building and over to the sidewalk that is in front of the store next door. There'll be a little footpath or sidewalk up here going to the entranceway off the sidewalk. And obviously the other way in is to go through the garage and internally up the stairs. So things like lighting and landscaping are all going to be addressed at the Planning and Zoning Commission. So unless you have any particular preferences in that regard, this will all be scrutinized there. The other thing I would just finish up with is these little darker rectangles here are flood vents. So they're built into the plan. And finally, the lowest finished floor elevation will comply with the flood regulations. I believe it has to be at least 12 feet. And this is, let me just see if I can, read this. Oops, wrong one. Oh yeah, what am I talking about? This living area, which is the highest or lowest finished floor, is up on the second level. So we're way above the base flood elevation. The garage, because it's configured so that one entire wall has the outside grade lower, is fine for basically dead storage purposes. And that applies to both the storage part and the garage part. In addition, when you go along the back and you go along the front, all of the outside grade is either at or below inside unfinished floor elevation. So that's all going to comply as well. And with that, if you have questions, I have the engineer is here and Mitch Truitt is here if you have any questions of the owner.
Jeff Williams, you want to start?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry. Yeah, Bob, I just have a couple of questions. I mean, clearly I see a lot of improvements here, and, you know, I'm familiar with that building, of course, and, you know, I got no problem with you taking it down, but you're converting it to a residential use. Is that for the owner's purpose? Is it becoming a rental property? What's the proposed use of it going forward?
Single family residence as a rental property.
As a rental property. Okay.
Mitch, you want to add to that?
Yeah, it's exactly right. Yep, for a rental purpose.
Tell them your name.
Oh, sorry, Mitch Truitt. Nice to meet you all. It's for a rental property. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right.
Barb?
I got nothing.
Gary?
I'm good. Thank you for the presentation, Bob. It was very clear.
Thank you. How was your chili?
Carolyn's out of earshot, but it was excellent.
Delicious. It was delicious.
Excellent.
Mr. Fullington?
So yeah, a couple of questions. So on the positive side of the ledger, where you're coming into compliance with flood regulations, you're reducing the coverage to make it compliant, right? So it's to beneath 20%. The front yard setback will be in compliance where it currently isn't. And on the right side yard setback will come into compliance. So I have that right so far?
Yes.
But on the negative side, the rear setback is going to be built more into the setback. And on the left side, you're also building more setback. Is that right?
Well, it depends how you look at it. If you consider the fact that there's a shed back there, the overall rear setback is much shorter than the proposed rear setback. If you're just considering the rectangle of the building footprint, then you're correct. But I think the way I would look at this is it's a balancing act.
Right.
Where do you slide the building? Do you move it closer to the street and make it non-conforming, or do you push it back so it conforms to the 10-foot front yard?
And
And at the
that's
same time, doesn't bother anybody in the back because it's all.
right. Agreed, and that's the balance we have to do. So do you have that what the net number is, right? If we are gaining some compliance in two sides and we're losing a little bit on the left side, is there a net positive square feet of compliance that we are gaining here?
Let me see if I can find a slide that's going to illustrate that. Okay. I think what you're talking about is, I'll see if I can do this with a pen.
And even with rough numbers.
No, I got it. So we're talking about an existing non-conforming situation that is like this.
Right.
Okay. And it would run along here. And the resulting non-conforming situation in the rear is this. Just a sliver. So eyeballing it, it's probably pretty close to a wash. I'd have to,
Right.
I have
Okay.
to ask the
But
engineer
I
to
think
pull it up on
when
AutoCAD,
you,
but
when you
I think
take
just
into
visually
account
it looks-
when you take into account the shed, then it probably is a net positive.
yeah, and you got that, you know, and then don't forget the HVAC unit back here, but I mean this is kind of
Right.
gonna stay, but it's in a different location. And then you had a little bit, a few inches probably over, or maybe a foot over in this back corner here. I'm sorry, up, because right, what they did, it looks like, is they built the building away parallel to the setback, but not 4 feet. And it
Right.
wasn't a 4-foot requirement back then. So yes, that part looks pretty close to a wash, or maybe it's a net positive if you take the shed out. The other thing is, from the shed over here is, and then you look over here, which is kind of it's an encroachment. You know, these are significant areas that are being reduced, plus this back here.
But it's paved, right? That's the paving.
Developed site area, and that's another positive.
Right.
I think your question was limited to the building though, right?
Yeah, right. But I take your point. Last question is, appreciate what you described as the hardship, but can you describe a little bit how this property is unique? Is it because of the shape or otherwise as compared to other properties in the area?
This is nothing like yeah, let me go back to the aerial. Okay. These are big. This is really small. It's got a very strange configuration. I would venture a guess that these lots conform with the lot depth, or at least in some portions of them. The subject property doesn't conform with the lot depth anywhere. You know, I have much larger property across the street that probably conforms to the lot depth and width as well. So there are aspects of the property here that make it different in zoning terms from the adjacent properties. I don't have the zoning history on these per se, but I would venture to say that most of these go back to the 50s. The store next door probably does. This office building, I think, was built later on. The gas station's been there for a long time. I remember when I moved here in 1965, there was a big fire at a gas station down here, and I think that might have been this one. But there is a history here where this lot was created when it conformed to whatever regulations would have applied, and the building complied when it was built. Now it doesn't. So, yes, it's unique. It's smaller. It's got more nonconformities than the surrounding properties. The NB zone runs, I believe, it's measured by feet from Tokenic Road. I think most of it's 100 feet, but there's some zigzag to it. But yes, I would think this is a unique, certainly unusual situation.
I just wanted to get that on
Unlike the rest of
the
them.
record. Okay, thank you.
I'm trying to be complete here so I don't miss anything. Thank you.
That's sufficient. I appreciate you answering my question. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Kevin. Is there anyone, Woody, do you have anything?
No, I don't. All set.
You
Is
sure?
there anyone in the audience that wishes to be heard on this application? Okay. Bob, if we were to stipulate that you had to have that air conditioning unit in a conforming location where it would fit, whether it's ugly or not, I'm assuming that's something your applicant could live with?
We could. I did mention the considerations of what it's going to look like from the street. And I just think it's, how do we do this? It's the minimum adjustment, given all of the circumstances. It's not harmful back there. It's in an area that's in a reduced non-conforming rear yard situation, considering the shed back there. But to be direct, yeah, if you make that a stipulation, we'll have to live with it.
Okay. All right. With that, we'll go ahead and close the hearing.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. So we are on to deliberations. Excuse me. And we'll start with the continued application 19/20/21, John and Abigail Moore, 11 Renshaw Road. I just start by saying I think they did an excellent job in taking some advice from the board and actually coming back with a proposal that was much more in line with the regulations, and you know, they did cure some existing nonconformities, made them better. You know, coverage variances are an issue. Luckily, Vic is no longer a member of this board, so we'll see what we can get away with tonight. But I do think that they took good advice from the board and came back with an application that makes a lot of sense. I think the reduction, you know, the hardship's hard for me on this property. Just in Kevin, you sort of got to it with the last application. You know, I think this whole street suffers from the same issue, and it's really hard to say that this is unique to this property. But I do think what's unique is that they are reducing the nonconformities, and I think that with that, we don't have to go to great lengths to find a hardship, even though a hardship was found here in the past. And those standards change, and we're not bound to precedent, so I'm not so worried about that. With all that rambling, does anyone else have any comments on this? Jeff, Gary, or Kevin? Kevin, you look like you want to jump in.
No, I would just agree with you. The coverage nonconformance is being reduced by almost 10%. That's not an insignificant amount. They're almost entirely eliminating the side yard setback nonconformance they had on one side, with only the air conditioning units outside of it. And the only thing they're really asking in return is to put eaves, additional eaves in the setback. So in terms of balancing all that, given that we're getting an almost 10% reduction in a coverage nonconformance, I think it's a good thing for the town. It's good for the character of the neighborhood, And I think we're well within our legal rights to grant it based on that reduction in nonconformance, and I'm happy to support it.
Great. Do we need further comment, or do we want to have Kevin make a motion then?
I would wish I could have said everything Kevin just did, because I think he's absolutely right. And I do think, when we think about some other applications tonight, as difficult as they are, this one shows it's over coverage, but a movement in the right direction. And I would think even Vic would agree.
Well said.
The
So-
only thing I would ask is do we have a commitment on them on fencing or something like that we want to include in a stipulation?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple stipulations we want to make. One is they had agreed to provide some fencing and screening for the neighbors. That should certainly be part of the approval. And then Woody, I asked you point blank, and I hope you weren't lying to me, but do we have some good language on a stipulation about what's going to stay and what's going to go?
Well, we could certainly craft, something. Fundamental for you would be, would you want a professional structural engineer to verify the claims, I guess I'll call them, that have been made? There was some significant, I think, commitment that Ms. Pemberthy made. And, but I think there is a little bit of a shakiness going on with this structure. From what I understand, if it needs underpinning, usually that means there's weaknesses of various kinds. So
yeah, so they had suggested they have so they had suggested they have a structural engineer working with them. So I have no issue with having the engineer opining on this stuff and making sure that it's built properly. So I think we have two stipulations. One as to the structural engineer. Maybe it's three. One as to what parts of the property are actually going to remain. I don't have any issue with them replacing that roof if it makes the project more cohesive. And then Mr. Fullington's point about the screening and fencing. So with those stipulations, I'll make a motion to approve.
A second that.
Jeff is seconding. All in favor? Unanimous, Woody?
Okay.
The next application is calendar number 1/2022, Tara O'Connell. This is a really tough application. I'm very sympathetic to the applicant.
Can I take the lead here just for a moment? As I pointed out about this house I was recently staying at, we had the exact same situation with the slope going down like this, and in the back of the house, it was virtually, that could have been the same house I was living in. It was virtually the exact same situation, and it's really, really tough. I realize it's an increase in coverage. I realize that we don't like that, clearly after 20 years, but yeah, I might make an exception here. My question is, and I probably should have opined at the time, or at least asked, whatever. What happens if we just decrease it to 4 feet? She seemed to be, Ms. O'Connell seemed to be okay with 4 feet. Is everybody okay with 4 feet? I don't know, but I don't really have a problem with expanding that. They can't use that rear yard. They can't use it. It's unusable. So I think you guys know where I stand.
Yeah, and I think it also backs up to a commercial development, which
it does. It backs up to Penny's. It backs up to Penny's shop,
which is another unusual, circumstance for that lot. I think they have a hardship in that the topography is unusual. I think, maybe they could explore an on-grade patio, but I don't know that it actually gets them the use that they're trying to get. And I know.
Let me jump in. Can we evaluate a little bit kind of the purpose of coverage in some ways? coverage talks to the volume of a house on a lot. Coverage talks to water flow and, impenetrable surfaces and structures. Here you're talking about a deck. So if there's no deck there, the water flows, rains from but if there is a deck there, it really goes through and hits the same ground, right? The increased coverage here will not impact the downstream, the downhill property, which in this case happens to be the old dress shop property. So I think we could look at the purpose of the coverage requirement and how they're not looking for a larger home. And should we grant this, we should talk about that being all that they're allowed to do here. And there's always it's kind of, in some ways it doesn't make sense to say you could put a large impenetrable patio 6 inches off the ground, but you can't increase this deck. That really doesn't impact anything.
Yeah, I agree.
But, this is the flip side of that argument is this family bought the house, they knew what it was, they knew what coverage was, they moved into the house, the deck was the way it was with the staircase the way it was. This is a personal desire, and the courts have made certain things pretty clear about that. Unless, Kevin, you want to push back on that?
No, I mean, right. So those three things we sort of need to find, right? One is there's something unusual, unique about the property. I mean, there's some evidence in the record to support that, her testimony about the adjoining properties and what I can see on Google Maps, et cetera. Question two is that unusual thing create some hardship that's depriving them of substantial justice in the use of their property? I'll come back to that because I think that's the hardest one. And then three, is this the minimum adjustment necessary? From my view, it's a minor addition to a deck that feels minimum enough. If it's not the absolute minimum, I don't feel strongly about going to 4 if we're going to do it and allow this. A 6 doesn't feel like it's beyond the minimum adjustment necessary. So the real question is there a hardship here that's depriving them of their substantial justice in the use of their property? And I could see the argument either way, like, right, they would argue probably we have no backyard for our kids, right? I mean, we should be able to have some outdoor space because of the slope of it. The kids can't be outside at all. Should people have some minimal access and ability to use the outside / backyard type thing? And maybe, I mean, could you do other things with your house anyway and still have a property that you can use? Yeah, but maybe you should have some, right? So the board could talk me into the fact that there is some hardship in not having, any reasonable outdoor space for their family to enjoy.
I mean, just having gone through COVID and the nightmare that we all endured, and I hate to throw that out there, but our back patio with a fire pit was a godsend, right? The ability to
That's a justification for a pool.
What's that?
It's not a justification for a pool, as we decided.
No, but it's outdoor congregating space that these people otherwise wouldn't have, and an ability to have a meal with your family outside and get some sense of normalcy during a pretty unnormal turn of events. I'm very sympathetic to this application.
And you would distinguish a pool by, right, the pool, they still have a big backyard to put a pool.
Right.
And unlike here, they don't really have a backyard. They have a very small deck that they want to make a little bit bigger so that they can have some, usable outdoor space.
Look, I agree. And again, I think if you consider the purpose of the coverage limitation, I don't know it serves a purpose in this case. I don't think it would be incredibly detrimental to allow them to increase, detrimental to the general zoning scheme of the town or of this neighborhood to allow that expansion.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a motion to approve at the 6 feet as applied for. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second it.
Gary, second, all in favor?
Just a minute, if you could.
No,
I just wanted to ask if you wanted to, stipulate something that they're not to build over this deck.
well, yeah, I don't think it becomes an enclosed
Yeah, no.
screen deck, right?
Say
Yes,
again?
that's implied, Woody. This is the deck. This is not to be enclosed, built over,
Yeah.
structures put on top of it. This is
Or
purely a
under-
deck with a railing.
Or Mike, under it either. They don't enclose underneath it to make additional storage. It remains a deck open above and open below.
Yep.
It's not more bulk in that way. Does everyone agree with that? I
Yes,
think
and just-
I think that's a good point.
Just to be clear, I'll make that motion again. Do I have a second again?
Same second.
Gary seconds, and all in favor. Okay, just so the record's clear. Okay, next is Woodway Country Club. I don't really have a lot to say. Kevin or Gary, if you want to just sort of run through this seems like a no-brainer and a home run. I mean, they can't build in a conforming location. They want to lift it to conform with the flood regulations.
Right.
I
I
don't
think
see-
I think the property is unique. And then if you required them to build within the buildable area, you can't build a home, so you're really denying them substantial use of their property if you maintain that buildable area. If you took the position that this house isn't grandfathered, and by raising it up, you're required to build within the buildable area, I think that would be unreasonable given that buildable area. They're meeting a FEMA regulation by raising it. They're not asking for any additional bulk variances, height, or anything other than building a stoop that is necessary for the new elevation. I think it's I think the variance should be granted. The application should be granted.
I agree. Anyone have any comment further?
I think it's a slam dunk. It's all upside.
Okay.
Upside.
I'll
Couple
make a
of-
motion to approve as applied for.
I'll second that.
Kevin seconds, all in favor?
They got
There
their
we go.
4.
Full 4. Okay, and
One of us- That one.
last is 282 Tokenic Road. Again, I don't really have a lot to say about this. Kevin, you probably had the most commentary. You want to run with this one?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that gives me a little pause is I'm not sure residential use is the right thing at this exact location, surrounded by commercial on each side right there on Tokenic Road. But I don't think that's a determination for us to make. I think the questions for us don't relate to that. So kind of got to divorce myself from that a little bit and say that I think on balance, the positive changes that are bringing it more into compliance with our regulations, meaning putting it in compliance with the flood regulations, with getting the coverage ratio, which we all agree is one of the paramount things, into conformance is important. And then the overall side and rear yard setbacks, it seems pretty clear that even though it's a small amount, that there's a net positive in those also. You put all those together, and you almost don't even need to get to the rest of the analysis. But if you did, I think the property is unique. It seems like there would be a hardship in doing something else other than what they want to do here, which is kind of straighten the building out. And it does seem like this 2-car garage with 1 unit above, it seems a fairly minimal adjustment. So for both of those reasons, because it's reducing the nonconformance, and I think there's enough evidence in the record that would otherwise allow us to find a variant, to grant a variance here, I'm comfortable with it.
So I want to just address the air conditioner. Like, I think we could force them to put it on the right-hand side as you're looking at the building, but I'm not sure that's best for the neighborhood. And I do think they get some points for, if you look at it mathematically, they are reducing the rear yard impact by taking down the shed.
Yeah, I agree, and I think we would maybe reduce nonconformance by what, call it another 10 square feet at most, or some and we would trade that for what I agree with Gary is a worse outcome for the neighborhood as a general matter. So I don't think we need to insist upon that additional extra reduction in nonconformance just for the sake of doing it.
I'll make a motion to approve the Bob Maslin's application.
Second it. Oh, Jeff was muted. Jeff, you're muted.
Oh, well, you got it then. You were quick on the button.
Exactly.
All right,
I was gonna say,
Like
ladies
I'm on
first,
Family Feud.
ladies first,
All in
hands off,
favor?
ladies first. All I want is a bowl of chili and a bottle of that wine that's behind Barb Hayes.
Oh, a bunch of wine.
So we've had
Cherry
eating
picking.
during meetings. A few of us maybe have violated, if that is a rule. We haven't had drinking during meetings, Jeff.
I didn't say I was gonna drink during the meeting, but it's only 9:15. Give me a break.
Mike,
It's time
nice
for Jeff
job.
to get a cocktail. Woody, other business, we've got some approval of minutes, the December 15th minutes. I'll make a motion to go ahead and approve those. Do I have a second? Jeff, second. All in favor? Okay. And we've got approval of the January 19th minutes. Again, Woody, you circulated both those, right?
Pardon me, you don't have those yet.
Oh, okay. The 15th you circulated.
I wanted to clear December out of the way anyway.
Okay.
I do have an
And then-
extension request though for
Yeah.
the Butler's Island Road project. If you recall that, it's an existing garage and some shed dormers up and over it, keeping the basic structure below. We've heard this a lot. There's a lot of difficulty with contractors getting materials and even pricing and all kinds of delays. So they're looking for a 6-month extension.
I have no
Fine.
problem with that. Yeah.
That's fine.
Can you
That's
do a
fine, Woody.
motion perhaps?
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Oh, second.
All in favor? Okay. The rest of the agenda, Woody, I'm gonna table for another night so Jeff can go get his cocktail.
Oh, Jesus, don't call me out.
Not the only one. It's not the only
And
one.
yeah, Mike, I was gonna say, don't start with me.
I'm saving myself for tomorrow, St. Patrick's Day.
And Barb, don't you start with me either.
Hey, if you don't mind, let me just ask real quick if you'd be receptive to going back to live meetings. Most of the town boards and commissions are doing that now. And we happen to have quite a difficulty tonight getting some things set up with the go-to meeting procedure. It's something we bang through each month. Jeremy's been on board all night tonight because we want to make sure this got done right. But in any event, think about that if we can maybe move to sometime this spring or early summer.
I have no objection to, I'll leave it to the rest of the board though. I'm happy to
We're
come in.
gonna have a live dinner event as well.
And we postponed that, didn't we? Right.
Yeah, Woody, that's only fair. If you're gonna go back to live meetings, you need to attend the dinner. Understand what I'm saying?
I'll tell you what, Woody, pull the individual members offline so nobody feels like they're being put on the spot. And
You can pull me online. Like I'm, as long as the numbers stay the way they are and keep trending that way, I'm fine with in-person meetings. If that's my vote.
okay.
Kevin, I assume you're referring to numbers meaning like infection rates and stuff like that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Or
Yeah,
Not
application.
numbers of
I
not
didn't
numbers of
know
members of
if
this
it meant
board.
applications or you meant infection rate. I didn't know. Got it.
Would
So-
live meetings allow? Sorry to interrupt, but would live meetings allow for the possibility of hybrid situations? So you could have a live meeting, but also would people go to meeting as well, or are you thinking just completely live?
Heck of a good question. To my knowledge, that's not set up yet, but I know equipment was ordered. The room we've usually met in. Matt hasn't had a chance to ever meet with us in room 206, but they did set it up with some cameras, and I believe that's the goal.
Do any of the other commissions facing participants, applicants, whatever, who are reluctant to come in?
Yeah, or just an odd circumstance. I mean, even one of you that it might happen to be, off-site somewhere could, in theory, join up with a hybrid situation like Matt suggests. But no, as far as I know, it's not available yet. But we can certainly do a poll offline and see how everyone feels. Okay.
Perfect. All right, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn.
No election of officers, huh?
We're not quite there yet.
Okay, I got to keep asking. From
I'll
June,
make a,
do it again.
From.
I second the motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
thank you, Jeffrey. All in
Yes,
favor.
sir.
Thank you
Well
very
done,
much.
Mike.
Have a great
Guys.
evening.
Good night, everybody.
Happy
Good
St.
night.
Patrick's.
Thanks, buddy.
Good night.
Night.